I have never had high expectations for what they might decide to argue, but even I am blown away that none of the facts are in dispute, and that if you take the case that the House Intelligence Committee laid out, you take the 17 witnesses that we've already heard from, you add to it the prospect of John Bolton corroborating and enhancing our understanding, it would seem that their very narrow argument is pressuring and extorting a foreign government to impact a U.S. election is not impeachable. Is that where things stand right now?
I think it is. It's the only place they can go, Nicole. After all, Donald Trump will be on trial tomorrow. He'll be only the third president on trial for high crimes and misdemeanors. He'll be the first president to go on trial in his first term and the first president in our nation's history to go on trial for violating and undermining American national security. The charges are so grave, they're so serious, and the charges and the facts are not in dispute, that the only basis upon which to defend the president, as you heard Alan Dershowitz say, is a narrow legal basis that says actually Trump was acting in furtherance of the national interest. In other words, he wants us to believe that in trying to get dirt on his political opponent, Joe Biden, that was somehow in America's national interest, when this administration has done precisely nothing to take on corruption, not in Ukraine, not anywhere else. In fact, you could argue they've been guilty of corruption.
Let's hit pause right here, because I think we're entering a real snow zone where they're going to throw, as they did with Mueller, as they did with Michael Cohen, they're going to throw disinformation into the ether. A former senior Justice Department official told me to go search for any example where Donald Trump cared about corruption anywhere in the world and anywhere in the U.S. Is what you just articulated really something that's going to pass muster, even with these zombie-like Senate Republicans who seem to march in lockstep with him? I mean, do you think they will buy that and try to sell it to their constituents?
Well, they certainly won't buy it in their inner voices. The question is, what will they do publicly? But again, another way to say this, Nicole, is that the president is arguing that what's in his personal interest must be in his national interest. It's I am the state. It's actually the very definition of corruption. It's saying that when I benefit myself, I'm furthering America's national interest. And America has had a long tradition, adhering to the rule of law, adhering to the Constitution, to say, no, that is not what we expect from our public leaders. And when you cross that line, you're crossing a very significant constitutional line.
Frank Figliuzzi, can you just sort of hold court on what the criminal questions would be if this were anybody else? If someone else had sort of, if this were a senator or anyone else who had put their campaign or their political fate on the line instead of U.S. national security interests, would we be having a conversation like this?
Yeah, I've said it before. If this were the local mayor, the building inspector in some county one of your viewers lives in, this is a no-brainer bribery charge. This is offering a thing of value in exchange for an official act. You get your military aid if you open and announce this investigation on my political enemy. It is a no-brainer. Now, I know that the Democrats have chosen to not go the route of saying, we think this was a federal bribery crime. And I get that, because it's a matter of principle that the Constitution does not require that a crime be committed. But you're going to hear that from Dershowitz and Starr. We've already heard it. And this is an interesting defense from the president's team, because this, what I call the I did it, so what defense, is actually maybe their best bet for avoiding needing to call witnesses, because what they can say is, hey, if we called witnesses, what would we do that for? All they'll do is tell you what we already are telling you. He did it. He did it, and we just don't think it's impeachable. So in a way, we're used to this, and it shocks the conscience, but we shouldn't be surprised, because it's actually a really smart way to go.
You know, Jonathan, this is also, I've tried to study the patterns of Trump's presidency. This is the constant pattern. No, I don't, deny the Stormy Daniels affair, say I don't know anything about the payoffs of Stormy Daniels or any of the other alleged affairs. So you have to talk to Michael Cohen. Then on the front page of the New York Times is the photocopy of the check signed by Donald J. Trump to pay to keep Stormy Daniels quiet. Deny any sort of coordination with Russia, deny no, and then when it comes out, say there's nothing wrong with taking help from Russia. Say, he said to George Stephanopoulos, so anyone would do it, and I would do it again. I mean, the pattern is always to deny it, and then when the truth comes out, to normalize it, and then to go sell it to the base. I mean, here we have as a backstop, John Bolton's book will come out and tell the whole story. We will know the whole story of the criminality. I mean, do you sense that there's any consideration that this sort of argument doesn't really look particularly innocent?
This is the pattern. It's deny it, it's move the goalposts, and then to say, well, it's no big deal. And, any other president would do this too. I mean, the Bolton is certainly on the White House's radar, what could be coming there. I mean, they'd prefer it to be in book form than in testimony in front of Congress, I suppose. But that is something that they're concerned about, and certainly if he were to be called as a witness, I think we'd be hearing a lot about executive privilege. The president certainly, I mean, his team laid out this brief today, which is far more of a political document than a legal one. My favorite part, if I may,
please,
that the president, I'm quoting from it, the president frequently uses variations of the phrase, quote, do us a favor in the context of international diplomacy. And the, quote, favors have nothing to do with the president's personal interests. One more. The president cannot be removed from office because House Democrats deliberately misconstrue one of his commonly used phrases. So basically, they're fighting on the phrase, do us a favor, which, of course, when you're reading the transcript, not a full transcript, but the White House summary, that memo, it is very clear. It is intrinsically linked that it's a favor, not for the United States, but for me personally. If you want this military aid, you need to do what I ask you to do, and that's to launch this investigation into the Bidens.
So that's amazing. I mean, none other than Chris Christie went on national television before the transcript was released and said, now, this isn't bad for Trump yet, but if there's any evidence that Trump said anything like, hey, do me a favor, buddy, I mean, that's precisely what he did.
Is it precisely what he did? And now they're trying to say, as it fits in the pattern, well, that's okay. He didn't mean anything by it.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.